Hi everyone. There are multiple things that I found interesting and surprising based off of the recording, and just things that I was just interested in to learn more about. But I really like the quote where it said, "A child who can love can grieve," because it just shows that once if you're able to make a connection, you're able to feel loss. And they just may experience it differently depending on the developmental area that they're in. For example, what stood out to me the most was 3 to 5 year olds may not understand the permanence of death. So they may ask, when's mom coming home? Or when's dad gonna be back? They may not understand what death really means. And so another part of the presentation that was really important was talking about language. So it's important with concrete terms and explaining death, but explaining death in a way that's age appropriate. So explaining it in a way that makes sense, that explains that is permanent, while also explaining to the child that grief is going to continue. Another thing that I liked in the presentation was just how she said that you won't always feel this way. And so it's important to express that to the child as well. Um, Something else I found really interesting was was the idea of secondary loss. And so I'm actually interested in learning more about that because um like things like moving after someone passes, or a change in your friend group, all those things are loss as well and can have impacts and impact the child's sense of security and make them not feel as safe and comfortable. And that can heavily impact the child. So I'm interested in learning more about that. Um, but another thing that was really interesting, um, and that was surprising, was not even surprising, more so that I'm interested in learning more about, was the culture aspect. So with it being when there's different cultures, how the culture grieves could be different. They could grieve more openly or more privately. And so knowing what's acceptable, which has to do with being culturally competent as well, is very important because you have to consider the child's faith tradition, and also like how they view death. Do they view an eternal life? Like learning more about what that looks like depending on the culture is what I'm interested in. Um, but as far as another presentation, um, I watched the one on the impact of war on veterans, so and the PTSD. So with that, I've always like had an interest with working with veterans. Um, and it was a really great presentation because what I didn't know was that there was a high substance use of soldiers in the Vietnam War. And so there was a large need of mental health treatment. So it's very important to like know about substance use in general and how they coped, and they use that to cope in learning the different habits and how to work with substance use, while also when working with veterans is also important to like know how to do. I haven't really worked with substance abuse much, um, but I am looking into it just because of the trend, and so I can help veterans. I am a dependent of a veteran who has PTSD, so also talking about that family aspect and how that impacts family was really important to hear because, like, with that being said, it can help just learning more about the different symptoms of PTSD and the different types of evidence based treatments, such as the cognitive processing therapy that was mentioned in the presentation. Um, Using a therapy like that can help challenge those negative thoughts and beliefs. It can help the veteran work on their beliefs around the trauma, which could also impact how they are with their family long term by like practicing the skills and things of that nature. But I can apply this to my future clients by learning more about cognitive processing therapy and how that goes hand in hand with working with veterans. Part of like being mindful with it is really just considering the like veterans, their history, what they stand for, and learning a little bit about military culture. So overall, I'm interested, and I intend to apply like what I learned from about cognitive processing theory, and also learning about moral injury, especially like I have interest in faith traditions and meeting someone where they are spiritually. So with doing so, it's important to when working with veterans to look at the emotional long-term effects, the spiritual long-term effects, the psychological long-term effects, and being aware of those, so that in therapy, as a counselor, I can help process those. So overall, I do have an interest in working with veterans who have suffered from PTSD and struggle to integrate into society and the challenges with that. Because not all veterans, as mentioned in the presentation, not all veterans have PTSD. Overall, it was a great presentation, and it both and the recording as well. The first recording was definitely very informative and enlightening.